following is intended only for mature audiences.
Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann. And let's talk criminal justice reform today. It's a very hot button topic. Some people on the left think that we should be more caring and less punitive with criminals, whereas everybody who's not retarded thinks that we should be clamping down and fucking making worse sentences and more strict punishments to deter crime. I want to start with an article that I found from the Davis Vanguard, and that talks about how San Francisco and San Jose Democratic mayors are joining a GOP-led effort to modify justice reforms in the 10-year-old Prop 47. So Prop 47 made things easier on criminals. And what they're trying to do now, because of the rampant homelessness that leads to public intoxication via drug usage, and everybody shitting on the fucking sidewalks, and just an overall crime-ridden downtown San Francisco area where you're seeing retail leave, and people move out of the area because they don't want to be near that shit. And from people that I hear that live in Portland, it's equally as bad there, where you've got junkies on the corner shooting up in plain sight. So now we've got these areas on the coast that are very high in drug addiction and homelessness and open drug usage in public. So what they want to do in San Francisco specifically is they want to roll back reforms that reduce punishment for crimes of shoplifting and drug possession, which makes sense because there's tons of videos, if you go on Twitter, of people stealing from Walgreens or CVS or other stores in the San Francisco area because they're soft on crime and they don't pursue, and nobody is going to risk their life to stop somebody from stealing a bunch of fucking shampoos or beauty products. And that's the downside, is when you've got criminals that know that they're not going to be chased, it emboldens them. They don't give a fuck. They're going to do whatever they want to. But then across the bay, Governor Gavin Newsom, he endorsed the Prop 47 modifications. He's announced a partnership with law enforcement in the Alameda County District to battle crime. That would be deploying more highway patrol officers, along with experienced attorneys, to increase the enforcement of prosecution over violent crimes. Another good thing in an area where people are pretty much scared to go downtown or be in public because there's such brazen, broad daylight criminality going on. Right? It makes sense that if you want the crime to go away, you don't get softer with the punishments. You tighten your grip on things. Like anybody that gets busted for a drug crime, you hold them to mandatory sentencing guidelines. You don't go soft on them. And you also make them go through a treatment program of some sort to certify that they're sober again to get their government benefits back. Just like we got San Francisco Mayor London Reed here, who has put a ballot initiative going forward, hoping that she can convince voters to make drug tests mandatory for people that receive welfare benefits. So if you piss dirty, you got to go to treatment to complete it successfully so that you can get your fucking government feed bag food stamps and shit all over again. What a thought! Not just giving it out to every single fucking person that asked for it. So basically what you've got is they're trying to get a proposal backed to put it on the ballot for November to walk back some of these reforms. And it's interesting because the campaign to do this, their top donors are Walmart, Target, Macy's, and a powerful California Prison Guards Union, and the California Correctional Peace Officers Association. So, being that those are stores that are stolen from all the fucking time, they have stated that there were unintended consequences to going softer on crime in the area, and that is just brazen theft and no fear of consequences. Moving on to another part of the country, down in the south we got Louisiana. And I guess I wasn't aware of this, but Louisiana had the highest incarceration rate of any state in the Union. And given that the U.S. locks up more people than any other country in the world, that meant that Louisiana was basically like the prison capital of the world.
Aw, bitch.
So they lost that distinction in 2017 after some reforms that successfully shrank their prison population by a third. A fucking third. 33% of people that were behind bars were no longer behind bars, or they were incarcerating people 33% less of the time. Think about that shit. So envision a prison. say there's 333 prisoners, and you send like 111 of them home. Just you don't need to be here anymore. You'd be like, why are we letting criminals go? Don't they need to serve their time? So the prison capital of the world title looks to possibly come back as the state legislatures are sending a suite of punitive changes to Governor Jeff Landry's desk. This is from the Marshall Project, by the way, is my source here. So the new laws would end the possibility of parole for most new convictions and increase how much of a sentence a person must serve before being released for good behavior from 35%, not that much, to 85%. That is more than 3/4 for those of you that are terrible at math. So we got one part of the nation that's like, we should make it a little bit tougher. Then you got Louisiana. It's like, there's not enough motherfuckers in jail anymore. We should put more people in jail and also keep them there longer to scare the shit out of them. And they're arguing that, well, if they're going to be stuck in jail or prison longer, then they're less apt to act like model citizens in there to get out sooner. And it's going to resort in more violence and less usage of rehabilitory programs, which I can totally get on board with. But holy fucking shit, 85% of your sentence. That is just wonderful. Get those motherfuckers locked away. Keep them locked away. Keep them off the streets.
That is correct.
I don't think that's a mindset that a lot of people can't get on board with, because everywhere I go, you hear people complain about crime and say that things need to be tougher. So who are these motherfuckers that are eking through with these ballot measures to walk back all of the strictness of the criminal justice system? Who are these people that want to reform it to make it easy for criminals to get back out sooner? I'll tell you who. People like Minnesota Democrats, such as, and this is going to drive me fucking nuts, DFL Representative Cedric Frazier of New Hope. And if you're a cool kid who's in the know about what a shitty city that is these days, there's a reason they call it No Hope. Now, here's a guy who's trying to, quote, line up the science with what data tells us with how our systems actually work, how our criminal justice system works, and how we're dealing with our young people. And to save you some reading of this Fox 9 article titled, New Bill Aims to Raise Age of Juvenile Accused of Crime from 18 to 21. Let me just state that again in plain English. They want to raise the age that you could be considered a juvenile when committing crimes from 18 to 21.
God damn it.
Think about that. You can be 18 and you get to vote for our leaders. You can be 18 and you get to serve in the military and possibly go overseas and kill people. But apparently, at 18, you shouldn't be treated like an adult if you commit a crime in Minnesota. Get fucked on that one. Because let me tell you, as a former member of the criminal justice system as an 11-year correctional officer, I can tell you, a lot of those 18-year-olds are absolute fucking idiots, but they are adults, and they do understand that what they did was wrong. See, when Representative Frazier's talking about the science, he means that studies have shown that the human brain continues to develop and mature well into our 20s, and that your average person's brain is not fully developed until between 26 and 30, depending upon a number of issues, but we'll just call it 26 for good. So if you're 18, they're saying you got 8 more years for your brain to develop. And people like me that don't have our heads planted firmly up our fucking keisters can go, well, you don't need 8 more years to figure out how to not be a piece of shit. At 18, you should fucking know. Even if you didn't have a dad around, even if your parents were complete pieces of human garbage, you should fucking know. And to sit here and try to give these, quote, kids more of a chance to fuck up and just get off scot-free with a clean slate at 21? Are you out of your fucking mind? No. The age of culpability is 14 in this state and in most. And if you don't know what culpability means, 14 is the age that if you commit a crime, they will hold you liable and not just divert you and give you counseling or call your parents to come pick you up. At 14, they will charge you with the crime. They will stick you in juvie hall. You will do some fucking time. You will be in the juvenile system. I don't agree with this measure, obviously, if you can't tell by the way I'm fucking talking about it, because I have kids that are in 5th and 7th grade, and they have kids at their schools that have brought guns to school, that have brought fake guns to school, that have gotten in fights that left a kid with a TBI, traumatic brain injury, Another kid that was caught selling drugs out of a backpack who was only fucking 14. Don't tell me these kids don't know what they're doing. They're not walking around like, I wonder if this will get me in trouble. Oh, it will? Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, you fucking did. The average goddamn 8-year-old knows that stealing is wrong and murder will get you put in prison. Your average 10 to 12-year-old most certainly knows that stealing a car or committing a sex crime like rape will land you in prison and is not a good thing to do. So these fucking limp-wristed, hug-thugging leftist dildos, they want to fucking make it easier for these kids to commit crimes like they're doing en masse lately and just take it easy on them? It's bad enough that if there's a car full of kids and they get busted for like driving a stolen car or having drugs in it, they're only going to charge the driver. The rest of them are probably just going to have their parents to come pick them up. Just catch and release. It's fucking ridiculous. It boggles the mind. It's driving people fucking mental. But I would say that if you are 10 years old and you don't know that rape and murder and theft and burglary and assault aren't wrong, then you have a mental deficiency. And that is me being generous. You are full-blown fucking retard. I mean, how many chances are you going to give these kids to figure it out? Honestly. And it's funny because you got one rep who says that we need to take it easier on them. In the midst of a youth crime boom that I've talked about in other episodes with thefts and robbery sprees and shit like that. But it's funny because here's somebody else involved. Bloomington Police Chief Booker Hodges, who I'm just going to point out for sake of argument, the man is black. He says the science-based reasoning that they're trying to use in this bill that they're proposing forgets about the victims and these crimes. And I agree. So here's a quote from him. A lot of the arguments that they make for a lot of these typically are racial disparity-based arguments, right? The issue is they never talk about the disparity in the victims. We're always only talking about the people who commit these crimes. That's a quote he gave to Fox 9. A committee has not yet heard the bill, though it's being referred to the House Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee. It remains unclear whether the proposal will make it all the way to Governor Tim Walz, who, after what the fuck happened in the George Floyd riots, better seriously fucking nut up and not just give a big ol', oh, you guys are so unprivileged and it's so unfortunate how poor you are. And here's another quote from Hodges. To think of a 20-year-old as a child, I think that's a tough hurdle for most of us to get over. I agree. And then another person who was involved in this would be Hennepin County Sheriff Dewana Witt, who is both a female and black. Keep that in mind. We're seeing a pattern here. She says, science would have to explain to me again why you're okay if you make a great decision, let's say to join one of our armed forces at age 18. Then that's a great decision. But you go out and murder somebody, well, hey, your brain's not quite developed. That is the fucking sheriff of Hennepin County, who follows it up with, somebody needs to teach me. Show me why it's different when it's a bad decision versus a good decision. If you can't tell, Booker Hodges and Dewana Witt are both against measures like this that go softer on crime because Hennepin County is dealing with all those fucking car thefts. I mean, so is Ramsey County due to St. Paul, but Witt said the following, and this is a big fucking hallelujah when I read this shit. Racial disparities have nothing to do with this. This is about what's right and what's wrong. Exactly. So if you have a group of kids stealing cars, I don't care what fucking color they are. They're still committing a crime, and they fucking know better. If you have a group of teenagers that are 15, 16, 17, and they're in a car, and they're committing robberies just for fun, for fucking social media clout, they know what they're fucking doing is wrong, because urban culture, and that's any color you are, urban culture in and of itself is not exclusive to black people. Urban culture worships the gangster lifestyle. It's all about, oh, how many booking photos you got? How much of a badass are you? Can you show people what you've done? What kind of clout do you have? I will say this, though. The bill will still maintain the ability to certify a juvenile as an adult, including first-degree murder. That is from Representative Sandra Feist, DFL, New Brighton, Democrat. She's the bill's lead author. And she says, note that this bill is the beginning of a conversation and will require significant conversation and input. It fucking shouldn't, you dumb bitch, because we already know what's going on. And you want to know how I know what's going on? Stories about juvenile crime are fucking everywhere in the papers, on the radio news, on the TV news, on the internet. Here's another article that backs up the claim that there's so much stress on law enforcement due to juvenile crime. Quote, "It's unsustainable." That's MPD Chief Brian O'Hara, who sat down with a KARE 11 reporter and talked about juvenile crime and guns and how it's strained staffing with MPD in Minneapolis to a point of crisis. Here's a quote from the Minneapolis police chief. "I see internally how burnt out some of our officers are. We have to realize that we've gotten 40% smaller," he means as a force and size, "than we were 3 years ago, and when there was much less crime and violence, and we have to recognize that it's not sustainable." He means that they cannot continue to combat this much crime with this few officers. And their numbers since the George Floyd riots are down a couple hundred in their head count. Look it up. Anyways, he continues, "Unfortunately, with the level of staffing that we have, it's triage like everything else. And we're not going to do what would probably happen in the majority of the state. I think a majority of law enforcement in the state, when they see a stolen car, they're going to pursue it and then arrest people. We're not going to chase cars that are just stolen. That's never been a part of our law enforcement strategy." And he goes on further to say, "It's ridiculous to try and chase a car that's stolen in a city and put a police officer's life, those kids' lives, the driver's life, everybody else's that's out there at risk just for a stolen car, especially when we know what's going to happen. We take the kids into custody, and more likely than not, everyone except the driver will be immediately released." And that's what's pissing everybody off, is they get these kids, they don't even give them a slap on the wrist. They just release them to their parents. And what the fuck does that solve? This shit of saying, well, they're kids and kids make mistakes and errors in judgment, and one mistake shouldn't ruin their entire life. And to that I say, go fuck yourself 6 ways from Sunday. Because, again, teenagers are old enough to know right from wrong. They know there's consequences. But because we've gotten so fucking soft on crime, and they know that there's not enough cops to fucking handle it, and they know how to watch crime maps and Shot Spotter and all that for police activity, I mean, they're getting smart enough to know when to strike because they have diversions, or the police are distracted, so they can do their dirt. These kids are fucking meticulous and calculated, and we're sitting here, some of us, in terms of the government and the criminal justice system, saying, well, these are only just kids, and we just don't want to ruin their lives. They get a clean slate at 18, right? I mean, it could be up to 21 if the fucking bleeding hearts have their way, but just think about that. At 18, they seal your file, as long as you didn't commit any serious violent felonies and something that got you charged as an adult, and then you get to start fresh. There's no worries. It's all behind you. You're going to go on to go to college and get a good degree and a job and a house and a family, and you're going to be a future leader of the world, right? I mean, if you learn your lesson at a young age, you do have the opportunity to go on and succeed. However, if we're being honest with recidivism numbers, statistically speaking, you went to juvie for a reason because you're a piece of shit, and now you're going to be an adult who's going to decide that you're going to keep it up and commit adult crimes and go to big boy jail and learn how to get all kinds of hookups and new skills from the other shit rats that are locked up there. And the jail dummies have contests to see who can get the most swole while they do push-ups and shit like that. But they didn't just go to juvie because they were dumb kids. They went because they don't give a fuck about right and wrong. They just want to have fun and do things to make their buddies chuckle. And who gives a shit about who we hurt? Again, you've got the chief of police in Minneapolis saying there's so much fucking juvenile crime they can't handle it. And then you've got a couple of Democratic lawmakers that think we need to make it easier for these kids to not end up in the system or to just be monitored in the juvenile system so they don't go to big boy prison because they think all they're going to do in there is learn how to be better criminals. Maybe, but if you know the difference between local confinement and state time, you know that there are way more rehabilitatory programs and addiction recovery programs at the state level in prison than there are local confinement in county jails that don't have the resources or any of the programs to handle all of that. A lot of people that they go do local confinement are doing 90 days or less. So they're not going to take the time to put in the effort to address the underlying problems that lead to their criminal tendencies or what landed them there in the first place. Like the people that are going to be locked up for a while. And unfortunately, if you really want to get through to somebody, you have to give them a harsh punishment. One that fits the crime. Not just a, well, don't do it anymore. Oh, just a light slap on the wrist. Fucking lock them up. Make their life hell. Take away their freedom and their phone and their internet, and they're hanging with their homies and they're doing dumb fucking shit and pulling one over on honest, hardworking citizens. And I'm sick to death of hearing people say, well, these are kids that are coming from abject poverty and they don't have anything to do with themselves, so they just commit crimes. No, it's the glorification of the criminal lifestyle with urban youth. And it seems primarily black urban youth. And then you've got the sheriff of fucking Hennepin County, DeWanna Witt, who's sitting here going, yeah, no, these kids know better and I don't want to hear about the color of their skin. Because honestly, whether you are black, white, Asian, or Latino, if you commit a crime, it's the same across the board. I don't want to hear any shit about, well, poor people do more time in jail. Well, yeah, because you're more likely to qualify for a public defender, right? You're going to take whatever you can get because you don't have the money to pay for an attorney. Well, boo fucking who? Don't commit a crime if you don't want to sit there and get ground up in the gears of a class war in the courtrooms. Because you get a fucking public defender, there's a reason they call them public pretender in the jails where I used to work. And that's because these fuckers come in, they don't know what they're doing, they're fresh out of college, they're new to the job, they don't have the experience, they have no desire to go through the motions of trying to get the judge to give them an appropriate deal or try to really fight the charges. They're just going to go with whatever lesser charges their client will agree to get them a deal, to get the case done. It's all about saving fucking money. I found that out when I was assaulted by my ex, and that they didn't send her to trial for it and drop the domestic assault charge because, well, a jury trial would be costly, and they didn't want to do that. Isn't that great? As a victim, let me say fucking thumbs up. To all the people that are getting their cars stolen, you think that if they take it easier on these kids that are ganking these vehicles, they're not going to feel re-victimized? It's bad enough when you get your car stolen. It's a big part of your life. There's your independence possibly taken away because that's your means of conveyance. And you can't drive it because they stole it and they crashed it and fucked it up. And maybe you have insurance that'll pay for it, and maybe you don't. Maybe you need a whole new vehicle and you can't fucking afford it. Maybe this drastically affects your life, but all they're worried about is poor little fucking Joe Blow asshole juvie that just got with his buddies and robbed some people and stole a fucking car and went on a joyride and put it on social media just so they can look like fucking hard-ass gangbangers. Fuck all that shit. We should be getting tougher on crime, especially in Minnesota, when we have for years been a blue state with the reforms and getting soft on crime and going easy on these kids and offering way too many people sweetheart deals to do some basic fucking probationary requirements to adjudicate that crime. That means keep it off your fucking record. That's for adults, too. I should know. My ex,
The Beast.
doesn't have that fucking assault on her record. Yeah, or that time when she was a 26-year-old who decided to just randomly steal a pair of earrings from Kohl's and got caught. Adjudicated. Probationary terms. Keep it off your record. I mean, great to give people second chances, but shouldn't we be trying to deter people from doing that just once? Just once. Don't even fucking do it once. I've never done drugs. And look at me, I don't have any drug-related problems in my life. I also don't drink at all, so I can't get a DUI either because I'm never drinking and driving. It's simple logic. Tough on crime, tougher sentences, deter more people, make it miserable to get locked up so they don't fucking do it again. I don't think it's that hard to figure out, and damn them if they pass this fucking bill to up the juvie age to 21. They'll be doing the citizens of this state a great disservice. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann, and that's the end.